There was once a village decimated by war, a war its people didn't ask for. After 4 years, the killings ended, but the devastation had only just begun. Those who survived were left standing on the streets for hours, waiting for their only chance at a meal. In one of those lines scattered around the village was a woman, holding her son against her chest as he cried silently from the pain of his hunger. The war had taken her father, her brothers, and her husband, leaving her alone in a world she no longer recognized. All she could do was to keep her son safe, and even that became more impossible by the day. As hours passed and the sun began to set, someone announced that the food had run out. The line quickly became a rabid mob of starving, prideful people, shouting and demanding food for their families, fighting over what few scraps they could get their hands on. But the anger only masked the cause of their real pain. They had failed their families. This humiliation, this shame boiled over into violence around her. She watched her son cry, but there was nothing for her to do but push through the writhing mass. Fists landed on her back, her ribs, her skull. Ringing filled her ears, and the sharp sting of teeth through flesh filled her mouth with what can only be described as the bitter taste of dread. She collapsed to the ground, still clutching her son to her chest. He's no longer crying. Too shaken to check for his breath as the fight continued above her, a silent sob escaped her lips. "This is not you," a voice called, strong enough to pierce through chaos like a wildfire burning on a stormy night. "This is not us. We're better than what they have forced us to become. They want us to fight each other. When it's them we should be fighting. They are the enemy, and they must be destroyed." What did this story make you feel? Sadness, anger, fear? Why do you feel that way? This isn't your story, these aren't your problems or your emotions. This is fiction, set in a time you don't know, about a woman and a child you've never met, in a situation you most likely haven't experienced yourself. So, why then do you feel so strongly for them? Why do you empathize? Why did you sense her pain, her suffering, her hunger? Recall the last line for a moment, the voice that called out in the darkness. Did it give you a feeling of relief, of hope, a sense that maybe someone could help them? Did you feel like part of the we and angry at the them? Again, I ask why. You know nothing about the man speaking, what his values are, or who he means by we and they. He could be a freedom fighter raging against an oppressive, exploitive ruling class, or maybe he was the man with the brown shirt who offered salvation to the German people. A man whom you just supported because of the narrative I made about his life. This is the power of a story. It can transform even the most villainous of men into heroes, and turn stories of war into that of liberation. Humans are incredible at pattern recognition, and that is one of the reasons stories are so powerful. We're able to make connections between the words and ourselves, between its world and ours. We become emotionally engaged with the characters, and it's almost like we're there, experiencing it alongside them. This is what psychologist R.J. Gehrig defined as narrative transportation. Using mirror neurons, our brain takes experiences and emotions we've had and maps them onto the experience of the character, so we feel for these people, even when we haven't been in the exact same situation. Not everyone knows the pain of starvation or the oppressive nature of a post-war society, but everyone knows the feeling of not being able to get something you need. Not everyone fears for the death of their child, but everyone knows the pain of losing someone forever. A study by Princeton professor of psychology and neuroscience Uri Hassan showed the electromagnetic signals of the narrator actually sync to the brain of the listener. This, the neurochemical expression of empathy, is why we connect so tightly to stories, why they spur us into action, even when it might not directly affect us. All of this begs the question, what exactly is a story, and why did we start telling them in the first place? To the nomadic bands of humans in the untamed wilds from time immemorial, stories had practical social use. Professor Paul J. Zak discovered that compelling narratives cause the release of oxytocin, which acts as a motivator, a trust builder, and promotes cooperation between people, essential things needed for any civilization to survive. These fables also taught social values, lessons of survival, spiritual beliefs, and historical truths. Before written records were kept, stories preserved history. If you've been wondering whether the words story and history have anything to do with each other, well, they do. In fact, those two words meant the same thing until around the 16th century, and this non-distinction is not only present in the English language. Mo'olelo is the native Hawaiian word for story, but it also means history, legend, or tradition. It comes from two words, mo'o, meaning succession, and olelo, meaning language or speaking. So, in its most basic sense, they both mean succession of speaking, since all stories were told before humans started writing. These legends and myths that propped up in ancient culture throughout time were intertwined and inspired by historical fact and developed by the people who told them, adapting to the needs and goals of a culture over time. These stories connected the teller and the listener to a larger sense of humanity, allowing them to imagine a world beyond the dangers of their daily lives. Since the Industrial Revolution, storytelling has moved away from that immediate, in-person, interpersonal bridge. As society has become more individualized, the way we create and consume stories has moved in the same direction. Look at our internet culture. Our collective attention span has shortened by micro-content mediums like TikTok and Twitter. We've reduced stories to be bite-sized clips of audio or text, forcing it to be trimmed down to its most essential form to get caught in an algorithm. The fact that you're still watching this video, however many minutes in, shows just how much you love stories. But the rest of the world, it's hard to tell. Is storytelling dying? No, not at all. It's evolving. Because that's what humans do. We evolve. Whether short or long, first or third person, stories today still have the same purpose they did thousands of years ago: to teach us how to navigate the extraordinary circumstances of our own lives, to remind us that we are not alone in our experiences, and to connect us to a larger humanity. Sadly, there's a divide between people who use this infinite opportunity for connection to gain perspective and expand their imagination, and those who use it instead to reinforce the notion they already have. No matter how wrong that idea is, there's always going to be a narrative that reinforces it. Think back to the woman I spoke about at the beginning of the video, and the savior at the end. Tales just like that were used to defend the Führer and his tyrannical regime. This is the danger of stories that we have to consider. While they can be used to empower, they can also be used to enrage or paralyze. We refer to this as propaganda, the power that the elites use to build and destroy nations, to discount and disempower entire populations. And this isn't just a thing of the past. The Western world tells a story of white supremacy, one that imagines Europe as the main character, with billions of people only acting as villains or helpless victims, not as complex characters with their own thoughts, beliefs, or emotions. When we're consistently told a story from a single perspective, there's little room left for us to imagine anything else. Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said in her 2009 TED Talk, "Show people as only one thing over and over again, and that's what they become." When narratives are left in the hands of those in power, they alone decide what people are in the eyes of the rest of the world. It's a scary reality, a reality that the world lived in until the creation of the internet. Thanks to the World Wide Web, we can finally see beyond the limitations of the narratives we're told. We have the option to operate past the version of reality that's imposed on us by structures of power. There's no longer a single source telling us who we are and what to become. Everyone has become their own storyteller, because we all have a story to tell. Online, Africans can tell about the beautiful creations of their ancestors that lie in European museums today. Native Americans can speak about their heritage and how it influenced the country built around them. The Maori people can share their songs and dances to the entire world. Everyone's become their own storyteller, because we all have unique stories to tell. We talk about everything from the mundane in our everyday lives to superheroes saving the world from fictional extinction. We watch documentaries and biopics. We read memoirs and autobiographies. We follow vloggers and the stars of reality shows as they document every second of their day. Because we crave the experience of knowing what the world's like through the eyes of other people. Because when everything seems to be crumbling around us, we find solace in knowing that we aren't the only ones trying to figure it out. Social media may have forced storytelling to change, but in doing so, it created an opportunity for connection and understanding in a way the world's never seen. In less than 60 minutes, you can watch 5 films about 4 creators in 3 different continents, each with their own 2 cents about this one planet we all call home. And the zero sum of a story will always be just that, no matter how or when it's told. Today's video was sponsored by Brilliant, one of the best places online to learn anything and everything STEM related. Stories have allowed us to pass information down from one generation to the next, but science, technology, engineering, and math have all paved the way for us to be able to build these generations from the ground up. Brilliant is an amazing tool to learn these STEM courses interactively. By working through the concepts in a visual, hands-on way, you get a much better understanding of them and how you can apply that knowledge in your everyday life. The internet has not only changed the way we tell stories, it has also changed the way we learn, and for the better too. Now with a resource like Brilliant, you can learn on the go, no matter where you are in the world. Brilliant also offers other courses like scientific thinking, which taught me how to understand scientific data and use that information to tell more amazing stories about our world. If you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend you check them out. It's free to start, but the first 1,000 people to visit brilliant.org/aperture will get 20% off a premium subscription. This unlocks every single course Brilliant has to offer, and there's a lot of value there. I've used them personally to help create videos in the past. You'll not only be furthering yourself and your knowledge, but you'll be supporting Aperture at the same time.